Blog Talk Radio. And so it came to pass that the first to last was the first to die. And from this ash of triple stage darkness emerged the fresh rock.
Rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck.
From the cellar to the street, we creep, don't sleep. Do the tears, missing medicine. From the cellar to the street, we creep, don't sleep. Watch it down, make your eyes see mine. From the cellar to the street, we creep, don't sleep. Do the tears, missing medicine. From the cellar to the street, we creep, don't sleep. Watch it down, make your eyes see mine.
When I get up in the morning, open my eyes wide on it. Think about that show, I perform, hold that night so floating. These rappers be so boring, on they whole style I'm snowing. I put careers on to rest, while A2 is pouring. Just like Heru be soaring, up to the sky. I be that more, bringing that roar, straight up through a die. Shorties are hypnotized, while touching they thighs. They can't believe they eyes, Kundalini ride. The one you want to be, Pat, my brother if he got that time to put you on the road you need to see. But if not, don't get mad, cause your style ain't hot. These princes never stop, always ready to pop that cock. Always ready to rock for real. Hear my hand man take still. You the kids, always coming, always get that real. We got that native feel. Let's do your things like sand, that's how we do it. And
rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck.
Yeah, got feathers in my head, that's the warrior's way. Wichita, Seminole, I'm a new in Maine. Cheap medicine, ladies love to sway, cause I rep the A. Juice up, these chicks is spruce up, shit. Open in my light like the moon and stars. Love hard like Mars. Venus is Jesus, standing on the cliff with my war body on. My queen by my side, like the turbo tonic, it's the fire sonic. Right here, they love how we do. Right here, go bees on my neck, black king, diamonds, bling, bling, bling. I'm a son, million sons and hotter, millennium Falcon, the real world man. Whole head full of feathers, humanoids like damn. All these feathers symbolize the rays, that's days. I'm a son, multiplied by days. Transform a bitch to a queen on the one. Transpose my grip cause I'm not more than rich. Wealthy, fly as a feather. From the cellar to the street, we creep, don't sleep. Do the tears, missing medicine. From the cellar to the street, we creep, don't sleep. Watch it down, blink your eyes see mine. From the cellar to the street, we creep, don't sleep. Duke of tears, missing medicine. From the cellar to the street, we creep, don't sleep. Watch the time, blink your eyes, see mine.
Rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck, rock feathers in my hair, rock beads on my neck.
Peace, human families in planet Earth. How y'all doing? I'm your host, Ascension Dugatir. Along, you are now tuned in to Superhero Radio. I'm here along with my co-host, Selena, in episode 10,000 years. Inshallah, my brother Saga Sal will get on when he gets in. Thankfully, I'm more asleep. Hopefully, those parents, full-time parents, is out there and every day doing what you got to do. Hopefully, your children will be in bed soon because, you know, your life really starts when they go to sleep in the sense of your adult time. So I definitely can relate to that. So, inshallah, everybody's on their way to where they need to be. Again, respect to everybody who may have lost somebody this week or last week. Respect to everybody who, in a sense, God forbid, got locked up, put into the beast, whatever it may be. God forbid, or hopefully we'll be able to get out there a lot sooner than later, because that's not a place for anybody to be, especially at this day and age, you know, meaning that you have such a thing known now as ancestral correction, meaning that you have people now 5, 6 generations all going into a specific field of law enforcement, which, again, if we're in a lawless society, the laws, therefore, that they're enforcing are lawless laws. So, therefore, I don't know what it is you think you're doing, but it's not necessarily going to help all of us in mass. So let's just keep it real with that. I want to also give respect to those people who have been in situations recently where they have been almost attacked for being themselves, or have been in situations where they have gone through, recently specifically, going through situations in which you're being confronted with residual energy of people that no longer occupy a resonant force in your life. We definitely want to give you support and tell you, no, you're not alone, that this is what's supposed to be happening right now. Respect to those people who ain't, also who have been putting in the work, who don't get a lot of, may not get the exact amount of attention that they need or they should be getting based on all the tremendous work and things that they have contributed to the movement. Again, people such as, you know, some of my heroes, Brother Big Man, Brother Dawood, Booker T. Coleman, Jose Pimenta Bay, you know, a lot of the unsung heroes, or the unsung elders, you know what I'm saying? C. Freeman L., Bless the Dead. Please bless the dead. That was one of the greatest Sagittariuses that I ever met. He was one of the brothers that we listened to while we were going through our gestation period with him more. And he's really, really one of the greatest metaphysicians, Moors, that ever lived. And again, that's my opinion, but it's based on fact. This dude's next level. Him, Jewel Pulcrum, Queen Valaria, El Bay, you know, the people who really laid a lot of the groundwork that get overlooked nowadays because they don't have no personality cults or whatever around them. So we want to let them know that we, the Super Heru family, Super Heru Radio family, always think about them and their contributions to the life and the work that we live in now.
Shout outs to Empress Akweke, who was an amazing, amazing Empress and Goddess. I'm very thankful I got to meet her. She was the woman that actually consecrated myself and Aseer's marriage. She married us in the Botanical Gardens. It was 4 of us and 4 people present, I should say. And it was such, that woman, she told me so much that I always sit back and say, I'm so thankful for meeting amazing women that tell me the inner workings and the groundation of how things began. And she said, you know, I'm entrusting this information to you, sister. And, you know, I've been watching you for years with this man. And what a woman, man. She's actually the woman that consecrated Queen Afua as well. She was her teacher. And just a beautiful, beautiful knowledge seed that imparted so much grace and wisdom everywhere she went. And she didn't need an entourage to do so. And that's just so, you know, queen-like that a woman could literally turn scraps into a meal that could be digested by millions, to say the least. So shout out to Empress Akweke as well. And, of course, my mother, but that's to say the least. I don't really talk about her, but she's been real powerful lately. She doesn't come down to visit much, seeing as how she is a high goddess. And I'm very, very grateful to know that I have ancestors that are on the other side, really, and on this side, really looking down and around at things. So I give thanks for my mother and teaching me that it's okay to not trust the village to raise a child. If the village is in pain and if the village needs healing itself, then, you know, you have to protect your children first and foremost. And I just said today, you know, I was like, wow, if I were to write a book about anything, it would be about parenting without grandparents and parenting without just active village family members. Shout outs to Aseer's living mother and his living father, who lived minutes away from us in Brooklyn and never met him more, regardless of the calls and regardless of everything, the anger of not being able to control someone's life and of not being able to, keep someone from attaining happiness. Sometimes because people live in depressed states for years, it becomes almost a state of normalcy. And, as much as I love, my son's grandparents and wish that they had the strength to be a part of our lives and vice versa, it's really something when someone says, don't you ever call me again, and, after sending a picture of your grandchild to you. And I say that to say that this is something that, has been happening and is a common thread in not only my life, but when I do, give shout-outs to Everest and shout-outs to just brothers that I really would like to thank for doing some serious astrology work, Tampu as well, for just staying consistent out there, and from teaching people and hopefully, them getting the seedlings enough that they want to digest on their own. But to really look at my chart and Aseer's chart and the common thread of just being, all that fourth house stuff as well. It's just family and friends, and a lot of my lessons being taught through people that would betray me in my family first and foremost. It's like, thank God I got the groundation, the initial lessons in betrayal and disloyalty then, because it's almost sad that it's not surprising when people that you love are more attracted to abuse than to healing and to love. Some people don't want to see you happy, and I'm thankful that I learned that in my own family. People have heard the story before, but none of us talk about ourselves and how we develop into being the beings we are, and how we become these queens and goddesses. It can sound somewhat elitist, but I do think that there is a natural ebb and flow to a young lady becoming a queen and a young woman becoming, an empress in that sense. And my title, for me specifically, I remember when Aseer used to always, the Empress of 10,000 years. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't say I don't know why you call me that, but I specifically said, it's funny to be called that. And he said, well, for someone who's only given themselves to one man, that constitutes queendom in my realm. And, you can check the documents. It's sometimes I wish that women would talk about their sexual history more. And, they don't. And it's sad because thinking about it, and I'm definitely going to start just not even a blog group because I don't have the attention to be on the computer like that, but what I do want to do is start a newsletter group and basically just put out and have young women of different age groups and of different backgrounds just talk about their experience in preserving not just themselves, sexually, but what it is to make a commitment to yourself and to loving yourself, and it not being something that happens by happenstance, but there being specific choices that you make from like the age of 10. I always say give thanks for my mom because she wasn't just a smart woman and educated and worked for the Wall Street Journal and all these great things as a writer, but she was just real about, of course, a Virgo. Shout out to the Virgos. But, honesty, it can come with a price, and it's not people that don't live in honesty at all. Don't want to be around people that tell the truth. And who's to say that I'm so honest and devout? But one thing I can say is I didn't sleep around. I didn't, I listened about the trauma and I listened about all these things that women go through, and it's very, very, very sad. And I realized something just camera 2 that separates or makes me feel like I don't share in a commonality with women is that I rarely attract women that are like, oh, no, I've only had sex with one man, or I've only had sex with 2 people in my life and I'm, 33, or I, for some reason, I meet the opposite elk, which is so fun and exciting because it is amazing to hear about the stories and to learn about sexuality, not only within my life, but how it affects women, period, and their relationships and all of it. Shout out to one of my best friends, Candace, who's always kept it real with me through the years. And just beautiful, beautiful person. Known her for about 15, 18 years now. And, I won't. But point is that give thanks for people that can keep things honest, because it's how we learn about what we come from and what gives us the right to teach and to be, the people that can impart wisdom. And I do think that there's a difference between women that have been through a lot and that unfortunately have, been in situations where they've been raped and molested. Words can't express that what that must have been or be like. And I think about how lucky and how blessed I was to have a mother and to have family in my life, that even though things went awry when I became a woman, I had such a foundation of just being protected and valuing my treasure box, and in valuing, that's definitely going to be the name of the group, the Treasure Box Club, but really valuing yourself as a young woman and, being able to talk about your sexuality if you haven't gone through certain traumatic events. There's got to be a space for those women that never had to do certain things to survive, quote unquote. I have a couple friends that have even, had to sell their bodies and do other things. And, I'm always like, wow, that they take such strength and determination and conviction to be able to strip, and such confidence. And I've always been in awe to a degree about, in watching women that can strip. There's a certain freedom and amazingness about it for me personally, because there's a part of me that just can't even envision being naked like that in front of people that don't know me. But the point is that I want to encourage people to speak up that haven't been traumatized, and to email me at selinababina@gmail.com. I would love to get testimonials from women that are between the ages, I would say, of 18 and 35, 40. We can even go up to 40, that have slept with less than 5 men in their life, because we've got to be out there. I always say we've got to be out there, we've got to exist, but what happens when, it's not to say that, I was tight. I enjoyed sexual activities when I was young, but I was not penetrated. I didn't engage in, sexual intercourse involving the vagina and the penis. I might have performed fellatio and done other things. That's a different, to me, it's not virginal, but it's a different form of sexuality and sexual expression. And, I want to encourage women that have slept with less than 5 men in their life, that you're not alone. You don't have to go through serious trauma in order to be a part of some girls' club or some women's group. And, I've always felt isolated in a sense of not being able to even share certain things that I've experienced. And, real sexual magic, what real sexual alchemy is, it's consistency, it's devotion, it's continuity, it's serious study, it's alchemy at its highest, but it takes consistency with one partner. So people that have only slept with one person in 5 to 10 years, the same person, those emails are welcomed as well. I'd like to start to put a journal together and an archive of the healing affirmations and the healing aspects and the healing stories that we hear about and that have to exist. If there's trauma out there, then there has to be people that have not been traumatized through sex. And that's just camera one. Camera two is also just, encouraging people to, really take time to be quiet in the morning and during the day if you can, on the way to work on the train, whatever it is you're doing, to try to find more stillness and silence in the day, because things are quickening and more energy is catapulting itself literally across the table. And it's really good to try to stay still. In my meditations lately, it's really been about stillness and unplugging, literally unplugging from all real distracting social media. So for me, I haven't looked and been on Facebook, period, just because it's draining for me. So just doing small stuff like that for yourself and not feeling like something's wrong with you because you got to take breaks to just, acclimate and really download and take a good survey of what's going on, and to believe in your own strength and to just not feel like you got to be a part of a huge group to be heard is really the theme of the month. And thank you for all those teachers out there that are doing it from their homes and are accepting phone calls and teaching people how to connect certain dots for themselves, because that's where the real work is. It's really, really nice to have met certain people just within the last month that are just so encouraging and have been doing such great works on their own. And, much love. Just wanted to come in and give my essays for the night, and also pray for your transgressors and pray for people that wish you harm, because I found a gold chain this week. I found $10 on the bus this week. I had lunch this afternoon with LaToya Luckett. Shout-outs to LaToya Luckett, Bong Bong, and Slim Thug. They were fabulous, celebrity non-celebs, which was great. But stuff like that has been happening, and I think the change for me and my prayers have actually been really praying and sending love to people that I know don't wish the same for me. And that's, I'm like, nah, fuck that Christian mentality. Like, that's really where I kind of didn't ride with the whole Christian shit, like turn the other cheek type shit. But there's a strength not in turning your other cheek, but in praying for people that wish you harm, and in praying for people that wish you not well, especially when you don't think of them like that. It gives you a different type of power as a healer and as an initiate. Period. I'm feeling the strength and really praying for people that I know don't want me to be happy and succeed. But that's just because I might remind them of something in their past. So all of us are connected, and I really want to make the delineation that there are different connections in different realms of all of us being connected, because I'm not connected to certain things here anymore. So let me clarify that. Shout-outs to all niggas in the hood, people keeping it real. Love, Hotel.
Peace, everybody. I'm glad that we could build on that, because that's really what's going on. What our parents don't tell us, like when we grow up and they tell us, don't have sex and abstain and stuff like that. One of the reasons that they should tell us that, though, to a degree, to hold on to your energy, is due to the fact of how much energy gets depleted. But I don't think that our let's say mothers and fathers really had the wherewithal to be able to qualify it maybe in those words, because people feed on virgins in this society. You know what I mean? People feed on energy that they feel is not working to control other energy. So if you are a true sovereign in the sense that you live in from a perspective that you govern the realities in your life in terms of what you experience, as well as the divine gifts given to you through the Creator, then there's a certain degree of separatism that happens between you and this realm. And virginal energy, meaning energy that's not necessarily defiled so much so from the act itself, but more from the intent, It's really about what you intend things to be in this reality and how they become. Yet there are instances where you may sometimes, or people may sometimes, go to get what they want. Their intent may be noble, but the acquisition of that is savage, which then totally destroys the positive energy of whatever it is they could have built. So now is the time for us to be very knowledgeable and diligent on energy transfer and how who we give our energy to. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of things that's going on and things, people we may think that is one way, may be something totally different, and then because you find out later, you now become complicit in that energy. And in this society, they create this thing called ignorance of the law is no excuse. So in their court system, in their world, where even if you didn't know and you were in a sense set up to do it, you still could be brought captive for being there. That's why our foremothers and forefathers used to tell us stuff like pick your friends, like you pick your fruit, and that you can't please everybody. And that regardless of how good of a humanitarian, you could be the most peaceful, loving, pious, pacifistic entity in the entire world. Never taken nothing from nobody, never want to take nothing from nobody, and you'll still get hated on. There'll still be somebody around you. There'll still be some type of energy around you or people around you that is working to throw you off of that. Because anything that you make a clear stance on in this reality to be, this reality will test you and test that resolve to make sure you're really about that. This is why it's a lot easier for some people to look the part than actually be the part. Because to really be it would then mean that you'd have to really be in a position of reliability and accountability. And we live in a society that's based on limited liability, LLCs, you see what I'm saying, where nobody really want to accept responsibility for nothing. They just want to take a little bit of it and then pass it on to the next person, you see. And then at the same time want to declare themselves to be sovereign or magic or whatever, or God or whatever type of entity they want to be. But the thing about God is God don't ask nobody for nothing, in a sense. And God gives everything to everybody, you know. So in that being, you know what I mean, we're at a stage in our development as we go through and understand how things work. We have to be honest with where we are in the moment. There are a lot of people who want to be very positive in their heart, but they're in an environment or around people where they got to be a beast 24/7. And therefore the true self is stifled because for some reason they can't have full self-expression. Because these people around them who are used to a certain mind state are ingrained on a level, on a certain level. So we have to be, again, honest with ourselves so that way we don't wind up paying for somebody else's mistake. Yet, we also live in a reality in which the more you have, the more it seems like you're doing. So, it's more about, for instance, busyness, being busy does not equate accomplishment. Just because you're busy doing something doesn't necessarily mean you're accomplishing something. Those are two different things. Accomplishment comes through diligence. Therefore, to be diligent, one must have a mentality of a certain degree of clarity to see something through to the end. So, again, we live in a society, in the old world, for instance, under the old dominions, if you had land, then you had to defend that land. Understand? So you are the sovereign of that land, and in the feudal society, you have to defend that at all costs. Therefore, if that's the case, then you must be vigilant and diligent in your surveying and protection of that. Right? Now, in this society, we, as, let's say, original people, have access to and the potential to get in a lot of stuff, but we don't necessarily are in a position in which we are referring to ourselves as the majority, right? Like you notice, when they're on TV, they always talk to you and they'll refer to you as a minority, but they never refer to themselves as the majority. So when they're talking about certain newscasters will talk about things in the inner city, they'll say minority people. You know, they're talking about black people. So what that means is they've already programmed you to believe that you are a minor, a child, or something that is less significant than the greater whole. But at the same time, they do not refer to, let's say, white America as the majority. You see? They don't use that term to describe themselves. That is just assumed based on your acceptance of the term minority over you. Because if you're saying you're the minority, if they're saying that you're the minority and you're saying, yes, I am that, then that means to wit that the person that they then are the majority without them having to say it. So it's a roundabout way of self-defeatism, and at the same time it perpetuates a fictitious view of the world and society. The only reason why that you can legally be claimed a minority in the so-called federal government is due to the fact that the original inhabitants, a.k.a. nationals of the original republic, would and are the minorities in a federal system, because the federal system was not set up for us to participate in. It was meant for us to, it wasn't really meant for us at all. It was really meant for these people to learn how to start to govern themselves, and for us not to incur any debt from the fact that they used to belong to George. So as we get into, you know, what the society or reality expects of the individual, it comes down to how we view ourselves, you know what I mean, and how much of ourselves we are able to hold on to, how much of ourselves we are able to keep virginal, in the sense that virgin now is associated with a certain degree of innocence. None of us can, let's say we innocent anymore, because we all have participated at some point in our life in something that we would hope never to have to go through again. Yet, what allows us to be here now and be talking like this is the fact that we have accepted that and is not hiding that aspect of ourselves to get other people to validate us. The need for the ego, the need to be validated. See, I'm of the opinion that to be recognized is one thing. I think everybody deserves to be recognized for what it is they do. And regardless of whether I like it or not, or somebody else like it or not, nobody should be deprived of their means of expression, and whether I agree or whether it's negative or about me or whatever. So long as that mode of expression can be seen and recognized for what it is. You know what I'm saying? Yet the validation that comes from recognition is recognized as being something of positivity or negativity, because everything in this reality is dualistic. So nothing in this reality is one way. You know what I'm saying? Yet we expect everybody to be held accountable for what it is they say they're going to do. So if somebody else said you was going to be here, here, and there, and you didn't show up, then that really don't fall on you. But if you said you was going to show up, see what I'm saying, and they didn't, and then didn't, then that's basically something that you, in a sense, have to apologize for or atone for in any way. So I guess what I'm working to communicate is the social parameters of our so-called community are really the things, to me, that are the most paramount in what needs to be addressed and fixed, because we really don't know how. Well, I won't say that. That's not true. I can't generalize and say we all don't. But a lot of us who are, quote-unquote, conscious do not know how to communicate, not only to reach themselves, but the people and everybody else at large. Because black people communication is based on respect. If I feel disrespected in how you're communicating to me, then, you know, I'm liable to take it out of context if I'm an emotional person. Is it? Because my ego is bruised, which means now I'm taking things more personally. But being that my ego doesn't even represent 1% of me, actually doesn't represent me, the individual, at all. My ego is there to represent the image and the physicality of what I am. And it is up to me to indulge it to whatever means. But the real purpose of the ego is truly for self-preservation, because it allows you to know when things are becoming or being spoken of in a certain way, which then may lead to certain occurrences, which then activate and create flicker within the synapses of the reptilian section, or what they call the old mind, and then it forces you to react. Yet, reacting objectively to a situation and reacting to a situation emotionally will lead to two different outcomes. These outcomes will be slanted to one degree or the next based upon what the disagreement or argument or whatever it is going to be. So really, when it comes to associating and coming together as a people, we have a lot of hang-ups as a people that we don't really know how to communicate to one another yet at this later date in time. Because we're still communicating through how we were taught to communicate, through a Western brain that is the warden over the spiritual mind, you know. So we're not really communicating. So being that there is no, let's say, blueprint to consciousness and how we can all hope to communicate to one another, we're just kind of still figuring that out. But we've been figuring this out since like the 60s. You know what I'm saying? We had more direct communication when we knew less. Now that we know more, we speak less and argue more. Now that we have more things to unify and rally behind in terms of commonality and struggle, the more we want to individualize the struggle and achieving a different end. And all of this is based upon the fact that the revolution was co-opted with money. You understand? All you got to do to control people is deprive them of something. Like if you want somebody to come into, if you want somebody to come into what it is you're doing, but you want to control them, what you would do is you would bar them entry in the beginning and then put it out there that they weren't good enough to be a part of it. Then what happens is they force themselves to psychologically fight against this physical representation of discrimination, which really is a psychological operation. Because the true purpose is to get you to give up what you don't know you already have to become a part of something that looks like it's great and has everything, but really they don't really have nothing. But you got to do it by your own will and consent. So they exclude you by saying you can't drink from this water fountain. So to get you to the point that you march and get ate and beat up and killed and hung and all types of stuff, to get to the point to be able to sit at that same diner counter, or look at it like this. We all, those of us that went to school in the city, as much as Rosa Parks and these people did to get us to sit in the front of the bus, when I was coming up, as soon as I got on the bus, I automatically went to the back. You know what I mean? Especially like the high school stuff, because that's where everybody was at. So does this mean that, you know, I, at the time being, you know, a young black male, had no understanding, was still under this Willie Lynch thing that I needed to be secondary, therefore had to be out of sight and in the back? No. Because at the time, it's not even a thought, because I'm just going where my peoples are. So all of this is to say that every act that we do has a historical relevance to it that is still tied into this racial construct that has broken down the ability between us as individual and collective original black Autochthon people. We do not know how to communicate to one another in a manner in which whatever disagreement it is can be resolved without it devolving into some sort of materialistic display of anger based on the lack of communication. So when you can engage in discourse and build on it objectively and not get caught up, what will happen sometimes is that the same person that's in this so-called thing with you is trying to keep up with you, but eventually they can't do that. So what they'll do is they'll start throwing little personal jabs and stuff at you as a means to get you to devolve to their level, so that way you can then perpetually be in this fictitious dialogue with this person who is being run by this whatever entity that is telling it that it has to be disagreeable to engage you and keep you here. So that means that the real purpose is keeping you in a fixed state. And that's, again, another layer of the reason why we can't communicate, because as much as we're all black people and we share the species mind pattern and all of that, we still have varying degrees of what that means for us still, because a lot of us still don't know who and what we really are. Yet, it's like when you get conscious, there's almost this underlying thing that you're supposed to just know shit. And this leads to a judgmental opinion and view of consciousness that then is perpetuated in warring ideologies. Which doesn't do anything for what it is we're supposed to be doing, which is reunification. However, I'm of the opinion that we're not even at that state, that what we perceive to be reunification may not be, or like we have no collective understanding of what that means for us as individuals first, more so than a collective. So, like when I say, Michael Jackson, we all know what that is. When I say the Grand Canyon, we all know what that is immediately. When I say the number 5, we all know what that is. Yet when I say, okay, we're all going to get on the same page, what comes to your mind? You don't know. You don't know what that is. We have no perception of that. So if we can be very direct if you can understand what I say when we say that we are symbolically here to erect the spiritual pyramid of the soul, you know that I'm making an analogy and using the pyramids as a metaphor to us being the ones who built the pyramids in the past. But if you are coming from a thought of an original person that doesn't believe that black people were Egyptians, or a white person doesn't believe that black people were Egyptians, then that doesn't really mean anything to you. But when the white man says that the Egyptians weren't black, he can get a polygraph and pass it, say yes in that, because he knows that at the time that so-called black people were in Egypt, the black people in Egypt and Egypt wasn't called that. So he can look you in the face today and say, no, the Egyptians weren't black. You see what I'm saying? Because he knows at the time that the word black didn't exist and Egypt didn't exist like that. That's not what the people called themselves. So that means that every society that we read about, you got to go back to get the original name of what society is to follow the species mind cultural pattern of where that species went. So if you're trying to research Persia, you don't start with Iran. You start with Persia. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're researching, Andalus, you don't necessarily start in Spain, because Andalus is in Spain. But at the time that Andalus was Andalus, the word Spain did not exist. The word Greek did not exist until 1945. The word Arab did not exist until 1914, until, what's his name, T.S. Lawrence created it. When he gave the Saudi Faisal, who was the white son of a black Moor who had been poisoned, Faisal then took over, and because the Moors, who initially from the House of Saud were originally from the Almohad dynasty, those guys were Hebrews, which is why the Saudi family is Jewish today. Because when Faisal took over, they're Islamic, let's say, in view, but amongst themselves in their royal thing or whatever, they observe, their culture and they do their own thing. You know what I'm saying? Because Faisal could not be Hebrew because his mother was a Bedouin/Arab. So that means when he took power and decided to, make deals with these people, they could accept him because he was following the westernized version of Jewry. Because at the time, Charles Taze Russell was just setting up what we call the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, that people are going to tell you, no, that's a conspiracy, that shit don't exist, that was written for this, and that. Don't believe that. Because the basis of Zionism is the basis of all of the other isms that came out of it. Capitalism, communism, all that. It's all the same thing. Yet these people will swear totally that it's different. So case in point, we had a void of course moon today, and when void of courses happen, that's when the moon is moving from one, let's say, phase to the next, right? So every 2.5 days, the moon is in this little transit. And when that happens, certain things can kind of get let out or locked away. So in this energy today, this void of course moon, they came out and leaked and dumped all of these 6 million documents on the whole psychological MK Ultra mind control aspect of the Vietnam War. So all of the stuff we've been seeing in all of the movies, Born on 4th of July, Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, Hamburger Hill, Red Dawn, all of these movies that they bred us with under Reaganomics. All of that stuff now has been revealed that essentially the whole war, again, which was set off, this is how ill these people are. The whole Vietnam War came from something that they refer to as the Gulf of Tonkin incident. And the admiral responsible for that was a guy named Admiral Morrison, and he basically was a false flag operation that they fired on an American ship to give them pretense to blame it on the Viet Cong, a.k.a. China, to be able to go in there and lock it down. And this is what they did. But what happened was the Vietnam thing fell under the jurisdiction of the MK Ultra thing, and the whole thing became a psychological experiment for them to retard the progress and the spiritual reunification of the African and the Asiatic and the Afro-Asiatic peoples of Vietnam. That's why everywhere they was fighting in the land of the Nagars. And they was telling black men, and all that, like you showing them the images of your ancestors, like y'all came back, but y'all came back and brought these niggas. Now these are you a slave to these niggas, so we gotta kill you. So if we kill you, that means we kill this old God. Now that means we'll be God. That's why the United States, now Vietnam, is in a whole renaissance period now. They raising their culture up while America's going down, because that's what it is. That's what they do. The country that they go to war with first is never the country that they want. They always go use the country that you invade in first as the beachhead country for you to send supplies to so you can get into the real country. So if I want Iran, I got to go into Libya. If I want, you see what I'm saying? If I want, Pakistan, I got to go in Afghanistan. It's very simple. So them releasing these documents is them revealing, again, all of the stuff that we already know, but now it's in plain fact. But ain't nobody going to get indicted. Ain't nobody going to go to jail. Ain't nobody, some of the people that's in these documents is in this current administration right now. Right now with this dude, because it's the same people. It was a total 360, to the point that WLIB was founded. The guy who owned WLIB, I forgot the black man's name, his father was straight CIA in during the operation that they had called Air America, where they was moving heroin and opium and all types of, and trying to string the Chinese, the red Chinese, as well as import it in to eventually become the basis for the chemicals that they had in Nicaragua, where they developed the crack thing and then moved it up and launched it in the 80s. So due to knowledge, the guy who starts Air America, which was a airline, which was a front, CIA front airline for them to smuggle drugs and human trafficking, slaves, and all types of other stuff in and out of the country, was one of the people who helped run that was this black guy. This black guy comes back to America, has a son. His son winds up running WLIB. WLIB eventually folds and becomes Air America. How is that? How is that? There's no connection to this? Nobody's saying nothing about this? Nobody noticed? Nobody's wondering in the black community, how can that run? How is it that nobody still has been prosecuted for the government came out and said that they created crack and sold it to black people specifically? Hold back, look at the Oliver North shit, being that they're trying to flip this 80 game on you. Look what was going on in the 80s. Oliver North came out and said they have plans to lock up black people in mass. Now, this don't mean they can do it. This just means that they were psychologically putting it out there, because this is at the same time this shit called Rex 84 came out, when they started putting all of this conspiracy doctrine into it all to get us to believe it, so that way we can organically make it real through the melanin activation of our ascension that's happening within us at this time, and then allow it to manifest in some sort of inspiration for them to create it physically. We're talking about the manipulation of occurrences that have spells on them to make you look at them as if they're random events. There's nothing random. Even if you get a piece of paper right now, scrabble it, the most inane whatever drawing you could do, childlike drawing you could do, you could stare at that drawing and find something in it. So that means even when you're not trying to make sense, you ultimately do. Therefore, if we're really going to get the things moving and get it popping, we got to be real with where we're at and what we're able to do at the moment. Like, everybody has a voice to say something, but not everybody's voice is contributing to the greater good of what the so-called people want. But if the people don't make their voices known and speak up, then it becomes a matter of sub silentio, which is Latin for silent affirmation, meaning that if you don't say nothing, if I ask you a question and you just stare at me, that's you saying yes to what I'm asking. So we are assumed to know that there's 5 different United States function at the same time. We are presumed to know that they did all of this stuff. That's why sending them documentation from a national perspective to get them to understand that can be accomplished through a declaration of peace and friendship, which is a complete declaration that basically busts down everything and why on the material realm you're not messing with them, and why this straw man thing they got the right to use it how they want, so long as it don't interfere in your living soul. You can declare that by taking them through it as to what really happened. We have examples of this on, because this is one of the things we filed. But the thing, when you finish this and you send it to these people, you got to send it to everybody. You got to send it to the Pope. You got to send it to Rockefeller. You got to send it to everybody who they be talking about on Zeitgeist and everything else, and wait for no response. The no response then is the process in which you take it through an administrative remedy. But there's a quicker way to do all of that through ecclesiastical law. But to use ecclesiastical law, you have to believe in some sort of God. And a lot of medical, physical people, and no matter what God it is, you could use, but there's specific gods that have sway over them, that when you know how to word and use it, if you're going to use that type of tactic to deal with these devils, there's a way to do that too. But these are ways that really have nothing to do so much with your nationality, but more so to do with understanding litigation in a modern sense, and in their sense, and litigation in their sense, and jurisprudence in the true natural sense. Like we said before, you can't rescind something that you didn't own. So if you rescind that, then that means that you're using their property in a manner in which they can pull some sort of jurisdictional thing on you. So you got to watch stuff like that. But again, the symposiums that we have, we're not having conventions in which we are contributing things, coming up with resolutions, putting them into play, and then initiating them physically in the material realm. Those things aren't happening. So we're not even in, if this was the tree of life, we're not even in the Kether yet. We're still in like the iron. You know what I'm saying? Well, I would say the iron soft ore. We're like right before you get into the crown. So we got to figure it out. Yet, whatever it is, I know it's not going to look like anything that we've done thus far. It would have to be something totally different, because everything we've done thus far has been checked. Or we have allowed it to be checked. Either way, we're the majority, but physically speaking, the minority in terms of, the gangsters that we all live under. White, black, Chinese, Puerto Rican, whatever. So to further complicate things, they pull out the props because they got to set the window dressing up for the main show. But there's certain documents, again, within their whole thing that kind of shows where and how they was able to flip it. So in 1819, the U.S. Supreme Court overruled the lower court in a position that basically allowed Dartmouth College in New Hampshire to keep the charter that was given to them by King George. Now, whenever a sovereign gives somebody a charter, that thing can run in perpetuity because of the strength of the sovereign. And this still allowed Britain then to have its own property in America at a time when the War of 1812 had just happened maybe 8 years earlier. You know what I'm saying? So, essentially, this was the corporation. This set precedent for the corporation then, which was over the king, because the king was in charge of the British East India Company, which was the first corporation that the Britons used, or the Britons used to subjugate the world. And through this, they were allowed other companies and other colleges to accept and keep their charters, Notre Dame and everything else. So in that, because they cite, the judge in the case said that because there was no revocation clause in the original charter, that they had no legal means to suspend it, even though the so-called United States went to war to break away from these people. Again, showing you they're bringing the United States back under their so-called corporate jurisdiction, being that the United States had been remade through the establishment of Washington, D.C., which is the so-called truce coup d'etat where it first went down. Everything that happened from that point on in terms of the United States was illegal. In their law, we're not even talking about our law in our society. I'm not even really talking about us. I'm talking about them and their coup d'etat and subjugation of the original rights of the Republic that initially was peopled by black Masons, who in history are referred to as the Black Republicans, or the Planters, or the Bays. So it was in that. Then there was another, act that happened a couple of years later, which was Dodge versus Woolsey. You could look this up. Dodge versus Woolsey. Woolsey, Woolsey. Dodge versus Woolsey. And this reaffirmed, though, the state's power over artificial bodies, meaning corporate jurisdiction, meaning straw men. State, by law, can be equivocated to the word prince. Prince is a sovereign. That's why you can have a place called Prince George County, because George Washington was the prince of the British Empire. But then the first state to ratify the U.S., though, before they had a geographic Washington, D.C. location, was Delaware. That's why Delaware corporations have total tax immunity. They're like Nevada corporations. They have total tax immunity over certain jurisdictions because if it wasn't for them, the United States wouldn't be recognized as a body on this landmass, as a constituted body on this landmass, even though it was under a federal jurisdiction. So this gave birth to what we would refer to nowadays as corporate personhood, where a corporation would become alive and it could be sued and taxed and everything else. But again, once the Act of 1871, which established the District of Columbia, came into effect, the Goddess Columbia was chosen due to the attributes of what they wished to initiate in their endeavor of getting judicial and fiscal control over the people through the establishment of personized corporations in the form of strawmen and zip codes. So in that, once that was passed, the United States federal government at that point began to run concurrent with the original Republic Organic America. But once they established the Pony Express, after the whole Wild Wild West thing where they killed and destabilized all the Western Plains people and banks and stuff that was out there and kingdoms and stuff that was out there, they then were able to establish jurisdiction over whoever accepted the free mail and the zip code, which then canceled or forestalled their acquaintance or citizenship of the original Organic Republic. So, again, this was the act of the 41st Congress, Section 34, Section 111, Chapters 61, 62. Check that out. So, again, because all of these amendments as well were passed after the Civil War, whatever was passed after the Civil War was supposed to be let go of because the country was now not in a state of emergency. So to get around that, the corporatized federal government kills Lincoln and then establishes a perpetual state of emergency in which every president who becomes president has to sign that the country is automatically going to be, that he's entering into rulership of a country already under martial law. That's why they could do whatever they want. People's waiting for martial law to happen. It didn't happen. The way that we live is martial. You know what I'm saying? This is not how the country, if given its original intent, would have evolved into. So, yeah, that basically kind of just created it all. So again, they went from unalienable rights to relative rights or privileges, you know. So from that, these two, the country itself was twinned. Twinning is a form of mind control programming in which the subject is programmed to have a dualistic identity, such as, let's say, Beyonce and Sasha Fierce. They're two distinct personalities, and within both of those personalities, if done properly, there would be 2,139 separate altered personalities that would be triggered by different words. I would tell you some of the words, but I don't want to, you know, you never know. You know. However, these things are active in American culture because this has been the culture of the United States of America, specifically since 1945. So from 1791 to 1899 was one America, and then from 1899 to 1945 was another America, and then from 1945 to 1965 was another America, and then 1965 to 1985 is a totally different America now. Then 85 to 95, and then 95, let's say 2000, totally different place. 2000 now, we're not even, what was or could have been America is done. Out of here. Because now America is the center of the global empire. It's the Death Star. So as the Death Star, it's got to maintain a certain equilibrium over the masses through masses control. Now, initially the masses was we the people. We the people translates to Lenape or Lenabe in Watoic and Lenape. You know what I'm saying? And the Lenape, again, were a trading people who were confederated with the Wabanaki, and the Wabanaki then through the Washita, and they were all connected. All of them were connected through the tribe of Ben Ishmael. That's why the Septuagint, or the Septuagint was here, which was then translated into the Bible and then retranslated into what we perceive as the King James Bible today. This is, again, why ecclesiastical law is the only law that can really rule over all of it, because it puts you back in the original context of God, man realizing God as God becomes man. You know what I mean? It's a reunification. So what the devil does is it creates altered perceptions of how that will go and how to further give you extreme stimulus to overpower your senses so that way you don't focus on what's happening to you. You have to focus on what's happening to everything and everybody else around you. So the more open you are, the more open to suggestions you can become at the same time, because communication is a two-way street. So in reptilian communication, meaning communication coming from the reptilian section of the base chakra mind, you or the subject will be coming from a place where sex is the predominant factor of the conversation. So you will automatically know this person is functioning from this level of the thing. Now you as a conscious person have to accept, how far you want to deal with this person, because you ultimately know what the deal is. It's just how savage and how caught up in the sex is this person, is he or she. Because vampires are genderless. They come in both sexes. It's no thing. Everything is here to feed on you. Well, as a representation of energy that is coveted here, you will be wrought with energy and entities that, no matter how positive you are, will work to undermine your positivity. So distractions that get made are things that threaten us in the form of life and death. So as of late, there's a serial killer in Bed-Stuy, a serial killer in Park Slope, a serial killer in the Lower East Side, a serial killer in the Bronx. This is all in New York. These people are killing all of these people, to the point where they're labeling these people as serial killers in these different boroughs. So, each borough gets its own serial killer, and they all what? Trying to see how many bodies they can get within a certain time. Where's this coming from all of a sudden? Why now? When they still haven't tracked, we reported the initial serial killer was killing black women, I think, in the first year of the show. And ain't nobody found that guy yet. And they had him on tape, putting the chick in a bag and leaving it by the garbage. They got him on tape. They ain't getting him. They ain't talking about him. So with the releasing of these documents and this border force moon as a precursor to the eclipse, you're going to have a lot more of so-called wondrous revelations that will come out to supposedly make sense of events that people have been speculating on for years. You're going to get people who are going to talk about like unearthed pyramids under Japan or, under one of these countries that happen to be going through some type of earthquake. But it's going to be stuff that they already knew was there. Everything everything is coming from a perspective of how much energy you're going to invest in it and how long it's going to take you to realize that whoever is around you with this energy is not there for your benefit. It can be a corporation, it can be a person, it can be a family member, it can be a friend, it can be a dog, it could be a cat, it could be your house, it could be a car, it could be anything. Sometimes, again, you have to get fresh perspective. Leave your crib and come back in your crib and look at it in new eyes and tell yourself what in here shouldn't be here. Look around. You never know what you find. I've told this to people. They've told me they found home bug devices, like listening devices and shit. Like, this shit is real. People don't really, I think we know, but we don't really. This is really real. The things that are happening around you, as ludicrous in intent as they are, they're still happening because people have given them mental energy to believe that they are happening. That is the purpose of physical reality in that sense. It perpetuates itself by design. Therefore, if your design is to be truthful, then this reality design is to see how truthful you will be. The earth don't say, you could build a whole civilization, a whole city. The earth say a word, wow, it's all gone. Take 2,000 years, build a whole nother city. Oh, the earth is nice, the weather's nice, a word, whoop, city gone. Like, it doesn't matter. The earth don't care. The earth does not play favorites. Everybody talking about saving the earth, saving the earth. The earth is saving itself. The earth is kicking these people's ass every day. You have thousands upon thousands of white people homeless. There's caravans of white people traveling in the Midwest right now. No homes, no nothing. Wiped out. Where the government is forcing them to go. People think it's a joke. But we don't know. Why do you think they all move in here? Why do you think they all gentrify in your neighborhood? Because they know at least around you it ain't going to be no heavy earthquake or no crazy shit like that, because vibrationally we don't really attract a lot of that. Yet if they get around us, we will. See what I'm saying? So if they move into the hood, we need to start moving to the suburbs, setting up our own communities out there. I bet you the hurricanes, tornadoes, all that shit will stop. But we won't know, because we won't collectively get together and do nothing like that, because we can't trust each other. And that's real, man. I'm not saying this because I hate black people, or I love black people, man. But I love those black people that are black people who really don't mind, you know, being who they are. You know? I love anybody that's gonna be them. Like if you do you. Don't try to make me think you something that you're not. Don't try to become some image of what you think I want you to be. Ask me. I would tell you that I don't want you to be anything but yourself. Whereas if you can't ask that to any mom and a minister or whatever, because he's going to tell you what Allah wants you to be. She's going to tell you what Jesus wants you to be. He's going to tell you what Buddha wants you to be. He's going to tell you what Kali and Shiva wants you to be. You know? And all of these were sciences that we were taught to learn that we were who we always are. So we live in a mirror reality. And this is where the twinning thing comes in. So everything is twinned. We're in the time of Gemini right now. So there are types of twins. And these energies, if corresponded correctly, can truly achieve great things. But then if not, they become cyclical stars that eventually collide to bring about a greater supernova that will allow the culmination of consciousness to ferment in its own light, as opposed to the light that the two stars individually sought to attain for themselves. So this sort of cosmophysics is done in laboratories with calculations. Yet there's some of us who, some of the greatest mathematicians that you will ever see will be niggas in the dice game. The dudes who would be the bank. Because the bank, I remember who bet, who everybody who bet. You got to get everybody right, because if not, you know, stock accountants can't do that. The people who created derivatives can't do that. So in the coming days, as we approach this next eclipse, you know, a lot of other stuff is going to come out as well as the eclipse. So a lot of the space stuff that they've been setting up is already green-lighted, which is why you have the Green Lantern coming out, in which we are now being thrust into the idea of a cosmic consciousness in which only certain people are a part of. So there can be purple people and red people and all that, but there can only be, let's say, one black person and maybe 3 other white people amongst all the aliens. So to be included as a planetary civilization, everybody has to be on the same page. Yet, that doesn't mean that everybody on the same planet will have the same type of relationship with everybody else that's, off-world. So these concepts are being martialized by people who were Nazis or are Nazis. You understand? Look at the first ruling directing the first board of directors and the first chairman and CEO or whatever of NASA during its founding, and you'll see that they're all paperclip Nazis who were brought over through. They were all brought over through the Odessa program, you know what I mean, and what they call the rat lines that was run through the Vatican and everything else. And this is what they do in the material realm to manipulate our conversation. I don't like always talking about what's going on with these people, yet at the same time I have to, but in doing that, I want to always make the delineation between what I'm talking about them as a material manifestation and a physical entity, and then, us as, let's say, the omni-spiritual physical aspect above them, but then below them. Above them spiritually, but then below them physically and somewhat spiritually due to our own discontent of our existence here. Our species has been here too long, so we're suffering the madness of immortal old age. So to combat that, knowledge was given to us by the Creator to be able to stop aging, or to slow it down enough to understand it. Because the more you understand historical, this is what I mean about the quasi-metaphysical aspect of research and understanding things yourself and comprehending things yourself. The more you understand the correlation of historic events, those events that have some sort of spatial genetic materialization within your bloodstream as a genetic remnant of the people that you're reading about within that, is activated through the Akashic records and is transcended through your belief and gratitude of these ancestors to be able to potentialize that reality in your life and see it played out in your life, where you build on it so much that you are it. When you come around, certain people just leave because they don't want to have to deal with what you represent, because you are it. Yet, if you are it from the perspective of just reciting the jargon or looking the part, then you are, in the occult terms, referred to as the Lord of Misrule, meaning that you are the joker, not the fool, but the joker in the deck that is meant to be sacrificed at the whim of the ruling elite. And being that we all are descended from the original families that allowed these, that in a sense were co-opted through coup d'etats, through genetic coup d'etats, we are all still in a position to receive that inheritance. And these people are working to stop that and impede that for you. You know what I'm saying? It's really getting to the point where the actualization of this reality has forced us to make a choice. And the representations and projections of it are being manifested in people like myself and other people around you, because we all represent different aspects of your original black people's consciousness. Everybody that you've seen DVDs on and talk about, they all represent an aspect of the so-called black experience in America and the black consciousness in America. So who sometimes you gravitate to initially and maybe get away from later is dependent upon your level of understanding. Some people just stay on the level of understanding with certain topics and certain speakers, and that's what it is. And that's okay, because that's what they want to do. But don't get mad at other people who may have been that and then chose to ascend into something else. But by calling it ascension into something else would then, in language, negate what that person who's still in that system thinks they are, which then causes the ego to be bruised, which then creates the disharmony, which then the jealousy and everything else, and then the discourse, and then nobody is building. This is what we've been going through for the past 6,920 some odd years, man. And it has nothing to do with who you are, what you believe, and all. This is just what niggas do. This is what niggas been doing. So let's stop acting like we something that we not and be real with who we are when we come into it. There should be some type of vetting situation where if we had a place, an institution where people are coming to be represented themselves as speakers to the community, they should be asked questions by the community to see the level of where they should be placed in terms of the education of the people in the community. We should have something like that, and we could do that. But we ain't doing that. We learning how to survive this shit. Think about that. You learning how to survive this shit. You're not learning how to live. You're not learning how to you learning what to do if this happens. You're not happening. You're not doing it. You're doing it just in case these niggas do this. So again, how are you sovereign? How are you living your own life and coming by your own vine fig tree to say that you're your own man to engineer what you want? You understand? Like, this shit is real. And people, the metaphysical thing will make it where everybody want to, let's say, agree with everybody and then flip it once somebody don't agree with somebody else. And then it becomes ego shit. And this has nothing to do with what we're doing this for. This is the first time a movement like this has cropped up since the time of Pascal Beverly Randolph, which is something that Brother Ampu told me. He said that the conflict that's going on is a lot of the ideology between the Crowleyites and the Randolphites, meaning those who understand what Randolph was really doing and those who think they understand what Crowley was really doing. You understand? Niggas got it where they got it twisted. It's crazy, man. There's a lot of that going around, but people got to get to the point where they see it and then do something about it. Like, I've been, like I said, white folk don't bootleg my stuff. Black folk bootleg my stuff. You know what I'm saying? And it's real. And unfortunately, it doesn't create a viable means of expression between the two people. And eventually we all deteriorate into this whole dematerialization of what we perceive to be our dreams. Because if we really ask ourselves what we really perceive when we think about, us all being what we're supposed to be, that's something that goes into the individual but is given up into the collective consciousness through the dream state. So the devil try to flip the dream state shit, kill the Aborigines, try to set up a corporate jurisdiction in the dream realm, and all this other shit. But this is what they do because this is them in this physical reality, So, essentially, then, when it comes to things like, let's say, UCC and things like that, those things are good as tools to make earthly delineations between yourself and the man of straw, because then that allows shit in their paperwork to do so. However, the very act of doing so, you see what I'm saying, then creates the limited liability partnership between the so-called secured party, a.k.a. translated out of the matrix, the living soul, and the so-called government that created this creature of law. So again, nothing in this, the only thing that's in this reality is absolute, let's say, like that is death. And everybody working on that. You know what I mean? So I'm glad, man. I'm glad that we're taking time to figure that out. So I see a hand, so we'll take one. Anybody else wants to call in? 919, Moorish History Radio.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, Queen, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you? How's your family?
I'm great. Great, man. Thanks for calling.
Okay. My husband and I really love you. My family and I, we listen to you every week, so we appreciate everything that you're doing, you and your family are doing every week.
Thank you, Queen.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Cheers.
I just wanted to ask really quick, what are some more subtle, everyday signs that someone is possessed?
Can you say that again?
Oh, I'm sorry. I said, what are some more subtle, everyday signs that someone is possessed, more the subtle signs that you might see?
Okay.
Yeah.
One sign is they've always got cold hands.
Oh, say that again. I'm sorry.
Cold. Their hands are always cold.
Uh-huh.
Like cold hands. Or like real excessively sweaty palms. Like that's not good either.
Okay.
Somebody that's always like itching. You know? Like when you feel like itching all the time. Like but I mean like excessively, like every time. Excessive like nail biting. Waking depression, meaning like they are depressed but they act like they're not. You know, aversion to things like garlic or like spicy foods. What you call it too? Heavy night terrors. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Stuff like that would be really, really telltale signs. As well as you could get some brick dust and put it in front of the door, and when the person is who you may suspect is that, when they get ready to cross it, notice if they like flinch at all, or they like kind of pause or trip, or you know. Stuff like that right now is very powerful, especially when you're doing it as a means of, let's say, this would be called observing, because you have to observe the person for a while, because what we perceive as psychological disorders are, yet these psychological disorders are genetically programmed through successive years of what they call social engineering or non-human contact. You know? So, like, we as black people have a unified trauma when it comes to police. So when I say police to you as a black person, you're either understanding it from a brutality sense or from a, let's say, person who has a more, let's say, liberal view of police, you know. But it's still the idea that these things to black people is different than when I say police to a white person, you see?
Right, yeah. Okay, wow. And I had could I ask one more question real quick?
Sure.
Okay, could you also tell me, or I guess through the knowledge to the significance of time travel and like what it means to original people? I know I have a book on it and I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I was just wondering. I had been thinking a lot about time travel and just really being kind of obsessed with it, and so I was just wondering maybe the relevance to, our people and just how it could, benefit.
Well, we time travel every time we start to read about our ancient ancestors or what we perceive to be our ancestors. So when you're reading about these things and making these notes and writing these papers and, doing your thing, you are weaving synapses that didn't exist, that may existed at one point and were turned off, start to reactivate, and then you creep, the neural web begins to creep further into the 98% of the brain that's not being used fully, but it's coming from a imaginative, logistic perspective. So the energy is not necessarily quantified physically. Well, let's say you can physically, snap your fingers and then, wake up in ancient Egypt. But if you think about it, building on it, go to sleep, dream about it, then you're there. You see what I'm saying? So that type of time travel is another form of dream time or astral, what people refer to as astral projection. Yet, at the same time, what the so-called Western society version of it is, they always got to have their version of the real shit. So their version is to theoretically create a machine, right, that allows them to go back in time at a time before the machine itself existed, which is theoretically impossible. So that would mean that if they were to create a machine to go into the past, as soon as they walked into the machine, they would be coming out of the machine at the same time. You understand?
Right.
Because they cannot go to a point in reference before the time machine existed. So they would have to wait for time to elapse. They couldn't use it. They built it, right? But they can't use it. So if they built it in the 50s, they couldn't use it really until now. You see what I'm saying? Which is probably why they open in these wormholes. If you go to the time loop on YouTube, Norway, Germany, you will read that the Norwegian government is filing suit against the United States about that because that's also contributing to the weather patterns, them opening these little things in the air. Yet, they could be holograms. You see what I'm saying? At the same time. Because that's why they've been seeding the chemtrails with this thing called strontium to be able to project these three-dimensional looking holograms and stuff to look real. So this is the problem, you see, with physical reality. It's become so muddled that you don't even know. You don't even know if it's a real flower. You don't even know if this guy's a human. You don't even know if this dude was born from a woman. You know what I'm saying? You don't even know if this guy was born was a girl when he was born. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know. You know what I'm saying? So you can only, go within. So the time travel that we will experience or are experiencing is this awakening within us as we access this 98% of what they refer to as junk DNA through the pineal gland by understanding it from a cosmically black or cosmically dark matter, dark energy perspective as applied to black people. We're the first one to ever do this like this. So us interpreting the black man as an archetype of dark energy, the same way we interpret the black man as an archetype of a saw, and we seeing the black woman as an archetype of dark matter, the same way we see her as a representation of our set, then that means that the Heru is now the culmination of dark matter and dark energy coming together and creating the new reality. So, therefore, God has now manifested to the universe as man, woman, child. So to get rid of that, we legalize gay marriage, we legalize test tube babies, we legalize stem cell research, you see, abortion, to, again, stop the soul from traveling into the future, which is constantly unmet. That's why you can't really travel into the future either, because it's in constant motion. So even if you were to materialize in an aspect of it, you may not have time to get out the machine before you know what I'm saying, disappear again.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's constantly moving. It would be like trying to walk on water.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You can't do that. At least not yet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Unless it's frozen. You see?
Okay, I understand. Wow. And just
so it's all what we make it, really. So it's really so if you, as someone interested in it, as an original woman interested in it, you should look into what dark matter is and apply the theoretical aspect of that to time travel as a black woman who knows that she's the physical archetype of this energy because you have it physically within you.
Okay.
Because everybody in the universe came out of you. So if anybody knows about it, you know what I mean, it would be a black woman more than, you know, a man maybe. A man could tell you how it goes down, but a woman could tell you how it feels. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Wow.
So look into that and into what they talk about, what theoretical statisticians refer to as the 11th dimension. Look into that.
Okay.
And thought and all of that. And let me know what you come up with, man. Maybe you come up with some next level shit.
Okay, that sounds good. Wow. Thank you. And just real fast, I have it's been a while since I've looked over this book, but now I'm just kind of getting my days are all mixed up, and the Goddess Book of Days.
Yeah.
I'm not. Well, I just feel like my days are all. I'm you know, and it says, you know, a perpetual 366-day calendar. And I'm just not sure. I mean, it's giving you dates, and I'm not sure if that's the date or. I know.
Well, the easiest way to do it would be to base it on your. So whenever your cycle starts is the end of the month.
Right. Okay.
Because under a 13-moon calendar, the month is 28 days. All months are 28 days, with one day that's calculated outside of time, which is July 25th. So that's a day for all of us that potentially is a time travel day, for instance, or astral projection day, because that, under the real calendar, is a day where it's like outside of the relative natural galactic calendar, so anything can happen that day.
Right, okay.
All right?
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you for that, and peace to you and your family.
Thank you, Queen.
Okay, all right, peace.
Peace. Hey, peace. 614.
Peace, fam. What's good? Aseer.
Peace. What's up, Jake?
This brother Insight, family. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, brother Insight? How you doing, family?
I'm good,
peace,
man. First off,
Insight.
Thanks for blessing the show last night, man. I'm still getting emails, calls, Facebooks about how great the show was, but not to talk about that. I got a question I want to get into, man. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was listening to the show, and one of the brothers called in and was talking about the birds. And man, I swear to you, man, in the last month, man, you know how you be driving and birds be in the street messing with something, and right when you get up on them, they fly away. Well, in the last month, man, I've hit 2 birds, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's like they not as swift as they want.
Seinfeld episode. You ever saw that episode of Seinfeld where George was driving a car and then he was trying to drive and the birds wouldn't move out the way? That's exactly what happened. These birds are being bombarded with low-frequency waves because they're working to recalculate their equilibrium to the new magnetic poles. Because the holes that's opening up at the top of the world, if you go to Google Earth and go to the the Arctic Circle, you'll see a giant black hole on the top of the planet. And that's because they got these holes opening up all over the world. So what they do is they declare these areas no-fly zones, so you can't go to them on Google Earth no more. But some of them you can still see. you type in no-fly zones, if you go over them, you'll see a lot of them is over little, like, holes in the earth. So all of this energy that's coming out of the earth is mixing with all of this cosmic energy that's being propelled at us, not only from the heavens itself, but from this comet Elenin they talking about.
Right.
You heard them talk about it? Yeah, but Elenin, molecular Elenin, that they just took the M off and called it at us, that is also destabilizing and causing a lot of quakes because the earth has to prepare itself for this resolution. Yet coming with it are these dark little particles that they haven't really declared or openly said what they are. So they created this Hadron Collider thing 4 years ago, to be able to find like alternate realities to go into, but they can't stabilize the power because they need us. You see what I'm saying? They need us to spiritually get to the level. Like some of us are so on the level right now where they could take us to the Hadron Collider spot. We could stand right in there and know exactly how to work that shit. Not knowing anything about physics, not knowing anything about nothing. They can't do that. To do that, they gotta create a host body through the woman, through the mother, through what they call prenatal socialization, a means of institutionalize the fetus before it actually kicks in a form of torture they have called brainstem scarring, where they get a little dental needle and they scrape the inside of the roof of the mouth at the back where the spine is at, because to scrape that out, they found that it could produce a more psychic individual. There's something with the cup in that area in the mouth.
Wow.
But they scrape to the spine to do that, so that way when a child is born, the child will have a predetermined possession altar, to be able to accept that.
Man, that's wild.
You know? So yeah, these birds, the birds essentially though are all kind of being thrown off based on the switch. So this is why they was finding penguins in Brazil, you know what I mean? Great whites off the Florida Key, you know what I mean? I mean up by Hudson Bay and shit, like everybody is going through this switch, but they still acting like, you know, they still acting like it's all good, man.
Right. Yeah, I knew something was wrong, but I'm like, damn, I'm paranoid, slowing down, and you know, the second joint I hit, I slowed completely down. This dude was still just sitting there in the street. I'm like, damn. Then he tried to fly off. It was too late. I was like, wow, man, this shit is crazy. And I heard my man say that on your show that night. I was like, wow. Yeah,
son, they be going in, son, and some of these animals is also raising in consciousness. So you never know. Maybe they just wanted to just fuck it. I'm out of here. I mean, see, you don't know. We don't know how birds think. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But what I'm saying is, it's more possible now for animals to have a certain degree of human intelligence and consciousness that we've been seeing in these movies and all this stuff all these years. It's more conscious for them now than it would be maybe 10 years ago, just based on the level of information that's in the air. Like, they don't report about all the dogs that die of cocaine overdoses. They don't report that on the news. All these German shepherds are sniffing all this coke to find it. All these German shepherds sniffing these dead bodies. They be dying 3 a week. You don't hear Peter talking about that. See what I'm saying? You know, it's a big problem.
Wow.
But you know, this is the thing. So a lot of the animals is fighting back. Every other day it's a report about a crocodile, a shark, a monkey, a giraffe, an elephant flipping on one of these white people. And it always be white people.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy you said that. I just looked on the internet last week. A lion snapped on the cat at the circus, and then an elephant snapped at the circus this past weekend, man.
Exactly. They're tired. They're tired of it.
They sick of that shit.
And these are animals. These animals. Everybody, the shrieks and the cries of our ancestors and the murder of this planet have reached such a level in the universe that nobody in the higher realms can sleep. Nobody can really be at total peace until something happened with what's going on to people down here. It would be like living in a beautiful mansion, but then every night before you go to sleep, you hear somebody crying and this shit. You would go crazy trying to find where this crying is coming from. This is what's going on with us. But we are worried about bullshit. We worried about what we wearing, what people wearing and shit. Like, come on, man.
Exactly, the wrong
thing. Come on, G. Looking in the wrong place, man. That's what I'm trying to say. Is we're at a point now where we're supposed to be grown, and we put down childish things, man. And that's all I'm trying to say. We got to be held accountable for what it is we say we're going to do.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. All right, fam, I know you ain't got that much time.
Thank you, brother. It was a great show, man. I really enjoyed it. Tell them when the show is, man.
Yeah, my show is every Sunday night, man, 6 to 8 p.m. You know what I'm saying? We going in, this week we got Dr. Arlene Bay on the show, and he going in on water, man, how we need to start drinking this alkaline water. And these brothers in North Carolina, they made their own alkaline machine, man, and it's real affordable for the people, man. So we're going to be going in on that, fam.
That's what's up, Sam. Thank you, man. Thank you for doing the work for the people and bringing the righteous information and, you know, being discerning in how you distribute it, man. I really, really support that. Thank you.
No doubt. Same to you, brother, and peace to the queen.
Peace.
All right.
Okay, we do one more. Peace. 708.
You hear me?
Peace. I can hear you, brother.
All right, hold on, brother. Let me turn this down.
Okay.
Turn that down real quick.
All right.
What's up, brother? So my name is Raphael. How you doing?
Peace, how you doing, brother? I'm well, King. How you doing?
All right, no doubt. I'm doing well. I'm sitting here chilling with my lady, man. We've been trying to get through for a minute.
I'm glad you did, man.
Okay, it's good to talk to you.
Right to the wire.
I had a few questions for you, though. Number one, I've been listening to you for about 2 years now, but I've been.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, no doubt. Now I've been into the Tree of Life, you know, the Kabbalah and everything like that, and I've been listening to a few researchers and teachers, you know, talk about the 11th Sifra Tree of Life, but I heard it's 13 as well. And I wanted to know about the 2 that's missing because, I haven't really heard anybody talk about those.
Yeah, well, they're not really going to get into the 2 that's missing because then you wouldn't need the people teaching you about it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
A lot of times it'd be a lot of stuff like that in terms of how the information is disseminated. And the other part of that is that Sephiroths are also like chakras. You know what I'm saying? So you're only limited to 12, 13, 22, 33 based upon your own understanding of how they work. But they all essentially work the same way no matter how you organize them. There's some Tree of Life that are organized to look like a snowflake. But then there's some that look like a ladder. They stack it on top of each other. But either way, the path working is the same. The path working is really what makes the Sephiroths what they are, and that's understanding how the energy moves as things come from spirit to flesh. You know what I'm saying? So the 2 that's missing, like I said, if you study the old guys, Abolafia, if you look at the Book of Splendor, you know what I mean? That type of stuff, you would get glimpses or hints of it, but there's no, let's say, traditional, book that's going to get into those aspects because that's one of the secrets that they only give to their people.
Right, okay.
In terms of how to activate those 2. But you don't need them to activate them. You can name them yourself. And they'll probably have more power because you named them yourself, which will then activate the other ones because the magic is coming from you.
Okay, got it. I appreciate that, man.
No doubt, brother.
I had one more question before I get up out of here, though.
What's up?
Now, I saw one of your YouTube videos, and you was going in about how you formulated your name, the Duke of Tears.
Mhm.
You know, I wanted to know if you could, you know, kind of touch up on that and go in on that real quick.
Well, one, I'm a Duke, being that in my family I'm the oldest male. However, I was overlooked to become the head of the house for political reasons. You know what I'm saying? So on a level like that, you know what I mean, I think I claim title in that. The Tears aspect, again, represents the levels and understanding how the levels in society manifest and work together. So in that, I pride myself on understanding at an early age, my grandmother was very instrumental in me understanding the occult aspect of life. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things that she exposed me to and just how she was. And I think that allowed that. And she used to call me that, you know, as well. Then one time I had a dream, or I would say more like awakening, where I was witnessing like the end of things. And there was a person there that looked like me but was totally not me. But this person basically let me know that this is where a lot of this stuff is going, you know. And when you wake up, you know what I mean, you're going to know that there's a lot of forces like me behind you, you know. I'm just thankful it was a positive experience, because I've dealt with people who have had experiences like that, and it's been the opposite. They wind up possessed or worse. You know what I mean? But I took it as a positive, and a lot of the angst, and after that period is coincidentally around the time that I really understood a lot of the things about Moorish history that I think a lot of my people who were scholars in Moorish history weren't really about, which is what kind of led to, again, me being in a position that we wound up in the so-called community, you know, doing a lot of good with the people, but then not necessarily in congruence with most of the people that say known for doing it, you know, which I don't really take offense to. It's just I just know this shit. That's all. You know what I mean? You know, when niggas are talking about things, you ever be in situations where people have been talking about things that you said and then know you said it, but then talk to you like they never heard you say it.
Right.
That's like a recurring theme. So, again, I'm working in my life not to take things like that personal and not, you know, look at it the way that we growing up in the street would look at something like that. Like, you know, we grew up at a time you couldn't remake somebody's song if he was a rapper. You couldn't rap somebody else's lyrics. Like, when could you do that?
Right.
I remember seeing people get beat up for saying other people's lyrics from records at block parties and stuff.
See, I'm 23 out here, big bro, and these dudes out here, they tripping, man.
Yeah. But right, that's what it is. It's like a lot of, like the Queen was saying in the movie Love Don't Cost a Thing, and Cannon was the square who got reinvented as the Mac, the black woman, and then, you know, basically dissed her when he got on. But essentially, the story is he's a square and he became some G. And this is the story of most of the people that's out right now. Like, you can't be in situations on TV and certain things, you know what I'm saying, with certain people unless you're doing certain things. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we want to act like it's all about talent. We know it has nothing to do with that. You know how many talented people I know? They should all be rich.
Right.
It had nothing to do with that. You know, so it's all good. But yeah, man, that's really how I kind of seen it as that. One of the only Caucasians that I read or would read in terms of the Kabbalah would be Dion Fortune. Out of all of those Theosophic Society people, she seemed to be one of the most earnest. And they killed her, so she was on to something. Okay,
right.
And there's a guy named Daniel Mack who Madonna gave like $15 million to translate the Zohar. He's pretty okay. But, you just look at it from the perspective of understanding how the melanin molecule incarnates into reality, because all the Sephiroths are melanin molecules, or one molecule of carbon experienced in different spheres. That's why the Malkuth is black.
Right.
But to fully incarnate in this reality, you have to incarnate in a body of carbon. You know what I'm saying? You got to come out, in a sense, with melanin. So if you don't, and that means you're not. If you're a real Kabbalist, you would know that means that you're not even here.
Right.
See? That's why all the Kabbalists in Hollywood wear white, because that's the color of death. Violet is really the color of the Keter. You know what I mean? It's not really white.
Okay. All right, that's what's up, big bro. I appreciate that, man. We're going to keep tuning in and just, shooting out the energy. We out here, man.
My best to the Queen, man, and thank you for holding us down all these years.
All right, no doubt.
Peace to you, brother.
All right, peace.
Peace. Yeah, y'all. So, to sum it up, we all are working it out. So this room, so none of us are perfect in that sense. We all working to get there. It's just that we got to be real with what we could do and who we could do it with right now and who we can't. It's that simple. So it's not about who I say you need to be with or who they say you need to be with or listen to. It's for you to know who you need to listen to, who you want to, who participates actively in the correspondence. Now is the time for us to be observant. So that way when we come across people who represent our etheric double, meaning people who remind us of aspects of ourselves fully, we can accept them. So anybody wants to holler at us about the online classes or tarot readings or natal readings or anything, things we do, I have listed on our website, www.asheertheducateers.com. You can check us out. Email me at houseofl@hotmail.com. That's HOUSEOFEL@hotmail.com. Also check out www.sagaside.com. Also check out Brother Insight Show on Sundays. Check your blog talk listings. Type in Brother Insight.